Hello everybody and welcome to the Data Playbook. Since this is the first video that's going to be made on this channel, I just wanted to go over my idea of what I want on this channel, what I'm going to try to do, what I've produced, and maybe it'll be helpful or useful for everybody else that wants it. So the idea behind the channel is that I want to do some sports analysis using a lot of the statistics which we can use to help out with our fantasy. And so right now I'm just going to start out with football. Eventually we might move on to other sports since we're entering the football season. But since we're entering the football season, I wanted to go over football stats. I play fantasy myself, so I thought this was always kind of a tool that I was going to use for myself. But I thought that it'd be fun to share it with everybody else. Alright, jumping right into it, this is my startup screen. It's been more of a practice place for me to test out different GUI stuff as well as the actual data and printing it out, kind of displaying it, seeing what it looks like. So starting up here, this is the schedule that we have for week 1. As we can see, I'm making this after many of the games have been completed on Sunday. We can look at different weeks if we want to, or the whole season, which actually doesn't work at the moment, but it works for different things. But yeah, we can look at different weeks if we want to, see what next week looks like. There's lots of data in here for many different things, including weather, lines, anything that you could really want to know about the game generically at the high level. This will be a head-to-head matchup where we want to compare teams and see how they match up, maybe make some good decisions on our fantasy plays. So down here is the fantasy panel. This is where I can bring up and look at different fantasy points. Right now it's only from last year, but I'll update this to start getting the data from this year. I can see every single week here, as we can see with Aaron Rodgers. You can see by position, if I wanted to look up specific positions like just the quarterbacks. I can look up a specific team, and all of these are included, so just the quarterbacks from Baltimore. And then we can look at it all the way from any individual week or the whole season. And we can go generically look at all seasons, or everybody at the seasonal level as well, and see who had the most fantasy points last year for both PPR and regular. This contains a lot of share information, and I'll show more about what this really does in a minute. So now I can bring up individual players here. This was kind of a practice for what we'll see in a minute, but you can search any player you want to, since we were looking at Lamar Jackson, or all the Jacksons if you really want to see them. And it includes defensive players as well if you wanted to look into those, or offensive linemen. Every player is listed there. The last panel here is the team panel that I have. This is the one that's most set up. It's just meant for looking at individual teams, but you can look through everything about the team and players. There's going to be a lot more added to it as well. So let's jump into one. Since we had Buffalo that won tonight, let's look at them. So that brings up a panel that looks like this. You have everything about the team that you kind of want to know about, at least at the seasonal level. There's more of this that can be added for the week level if we want to look into that more. It's meant to change which season you can look at. Right now that doesn't work, but it will very soon now that we're getting 2025 data. So yeah, this is the weekly schedule. This one's from 2024, so we can see that it's all been played through and all the scores are already filled in. But this should get updated to 2025 as well. And as we can see, this old list with Von Miller still here too. But if you wanted to, then you can bring up individual players. So let's say we wanted to look at Allen. We could look at Josh Allen's details more, but this is still 2024. So we get to see all of his seasonal data, both completions and carries, or passing information and rushing information. This is the breakdown of every single week that he had. There's lots of data in here, and I want to cut this down to what's more relevant. But you can see there's tons and tons of information that we can go through in detail for each team and each player. And then this last part is all the share of mostly receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, receiving different components. So this bottom section is where I want to add some drop downs, and you can change which section which statistic you're looking at specifically. Let's see somebody that has something that's actually on here and how that looks, because obviously Josh Allen doesn't have any receiving touchdowns. So let's look at Amari, I think. Yeah, let's look at Amari Cooper. So this brings up his panel, which has something similar, but since he's only been a receiver, he's done no running. It just has this reception information and none of the other information that's unnecessary, which is what I want to do down here with the weekly information. Because as you can see now, we get all sorts of passing information, which wouldn't be relevant. So I'll cut these down the same way I did with up here. But then down here, we can actually see his slice of the pie, where he gets about 13.2% of all receiving touchdowns from the Bills last season. So you can use this to kind of determine who might be really worth it. There's so many different options for Buffalo last year that it was kind of difficult to have a real reliable touchdown scorer every week. Versus if I bring up something like Arizona with Marvin Harrison Jr. So let's look at that real fast. So now we got the Cardinals page brought up. And if we look at Marvin Harrison Jr., now we can see that his share is that pretty large chunk of 32% of all receiving touchdowns. So that's a more reliable, maybe fantasy player in the end. At least they'll score more touchdowns in general from the team. But it is relative, so it depends on how many touchdowns the team can really get in the end, too. This is just a percentage of how much it's spread across the team rather than how many touchdowns, period, they get across the league. So that's something else we can investigate and look into. So lots that we can build up into this, but this is kind of the basic setup. This is what everything looks like right now, and I plan on improving it. I plan on adding more stats to the bottom of the team panel where we can see their different rankings, both between rushing, passing, receiving, and then defensively or the such, and everything that we can get. I plan on eventually doing more head-to-head matchups per game so that we can look at each game, as well as maybe doing something on Tuesdays before waiver wires usually go through so that maybe people can make the best possible decisions before they go and do that. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I hope that you guys want to see more of this. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see added. And give a subscribe if you want to see more videos as they come out. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching.